Chapter 18 introduces us to ecology. Chapter 18, Section 1 defines ecology as the study of interactions between the living and non-living components of the environment, so both the biotic and abiotic factors. So an ecologist would collect information about organisms, what kind of environments they live in, and then they would also look for patterns that they see and then ways to try to explain why those patterns occur. Some issues that we have today are different than issues that were in the past. Previously, survival used to depend on having practical knowledge of the environment, knowing what, plants were able to be eaten, which could be used for medicines, how to hunt, all of those sorts of things. And now we don't really need to worry about that sort of thing. We go to the grocery store to get our food for the most part. But it's still important to know how our environment impacts us, and then how we also impact our environment. And it's believed that humans have changed the environment more than ever in just the past few decades. The human population is increasing very rapidly. This is called exponential growth, the way it grows so quickly. And some downfalls to that are severe crowding. More people requires more energy, and both in terms of food energy and then also as far as fuel and ways to power all of our electronic devices and things like that. We also need more space just for living and then also for disposing of waste materials. It's believed that we're in the 6th mass extinction, and that as humans have increased, the number of species has decreased. With the human population having tripled from 2 billion people in about 1930 to about 6 billion people in 1996, and even more than that now, that's caused a lot of issues and people having to move to areas that they wouldn't necessarily have lived before, and therefore taking the space of other organisms and their natural habitats. Also, with more people, not only are we taking space, but then also food sources and hunting and things like that as well. And it's estimated that about 1/5 of the current species in the world may disappear within the next century. Probably the last mass extinction that you are most familiar with would be the dinosaurs, which was about 65 million years ago. Another issue that is happening is the thinning of the ozone layer. The ozone protects Earth from the sun's UV light, and there are chemicals called CFCs, or chlorofluorocarbons, and some other chemicals that are helping to destroy the ozone layer. Some of those chemicals have been banned. There was a treaty in the early 90s that was signed by many countries to ban CFCs. And so that has helped, but it has not completely stopped this thinning process. And there's actually a hole that was found in 1985 over Antarctica in the ozone layer, which allows in a lot of UV light and increases chances for skin cancer cases and also blindness. And with that thinning ozone layer then also comes some climatic changes, such as the greenhouse effect, which is just the increase in the reflected heat towards Earth that's caused by greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, which come from burning fossil fuels. It helps to trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, and that causes global warming, or the overall temperature of the Earth to warm. And I will just caution you, kind of be careful in different research that you read about that or hear about that. People will say, depending on their cause, that it's occurring at different rates. So just kind of be careful as to where that research is coming from. And then a key theme to ecology, and this is a really major point, is this idea of interconnectedness or interdependence, which means that no organism is isolated from others, and that any sort of disturbance from the outside can affect the entire network. So one thing being disturbed is going to affect another and so on. Everything is connected. Ecological models could be either a visual model, a verbal, a mathematical equation, some sort of model that's going to help to understand and make predictions. The making predictions thing is really important there and trying to figure out what to do for the future. Ecosystems are very complex and difficult to study, so they're used models a lot to help to simplify things. And finally, we're going to discuss 5 levels of organization. The largest one is the biosphere, and that's going to include the earth and the atmosphere, everything that can support life. So this is the broadest and most inclusive level of organization. The biosphere is then broken down into many different ecosystems. An ecosystem is all the organisms and the non-living things that are found in a particular place. So, for instance, if we're looking at a pond as an ecosystem, all the fish and algae and bacteria, all those living things are part of that ecosystem. But then also how much oxygen is dissolved in the water, how much carbon dioxide is being produced, what the pH levels are, the salinity, and so on. Ecosystems then are broken down into communities, and a community would be all the interacting organisms living in an area, so it would exclude the non-living parts. So in that same pond that I was just talking about, you would just only include, the fish and the algae and the ducks and the different animals that are living in that area. Communities then can be broken into populations, which is when you have all members of a species that live in one place at one time, so they have to be part of one particular species. And then finally, populations are broken down into the simplest level, which is an individual organism. And then within that, we would study adaptations that organisms could develop to survive.